So I've talked in other interviews about what's going on with gold, and whenever you think about gold, you also start thinking about silver. And one of the things that's interesting about looking at those two metals in combination is how many ounces of silver does it take to buy 1 ounce of gold? And the answer right now is it's close to 90 ounces of silver at $30 odd an ounce that it takes to buy 1 ounce of $3,000 worth of gold, and that's a very high level. And it's much higher than one would think if you just focused on supply and demand. The amount of silver that is mined versus the amount of gold that is mined is only like 10 to 15 times as much silver as mined as is gold. Everything else being equal, and I know that's overly simplistic because everything else isn't equal, but everything else being equal, if you just looked at the price of something, one of which is produced 10 times as much as the other, you'd suspect, well, all right, the prices should be more like 10 or 15 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold rather than where we are now, as I said, close to 90. And so I think this means that the potential for a sharp decline in the number of ounces of silver you need to buy 1 ounce of gold could well be coming. And for example, over time, there's been a large range, call it 10 to 15 to 1, up to where we are now, close to 90 to 1. And I think we're now in a situation where it starts to swing the other way. That is, silver dramatically outperforms in price gold. And one reason for that is that gold is generally, most people know it's kind of like, yeah, this is the way to go if you want to really put a lot of money into one metal. It's also very important to notice that another factor helping gold is that all of the central banks in the world, which is very recently, now consider that there are 2 first-tier assets for all banks in the world to consider, and one of those assets is U.S. Treasury bonds, and the other, just in the last couple of years, is gold. And so this causes a lot of people to say, hey, gold is money, even the banks in the world consider it as money. They don't have the same sense about silver. So what tends to happen at the beginning of bull markets in gold is that gold could well go up faster than silver, so that the prices we see now to get 1 ounce of gold by selling silver is very, very high. But as we now are getting into further on in the bull market, things start to swing in the other direction in terms of silver outperforming gold. And one of the reasons that may be happening is some short-term panic going on with the exchanges that trade both gold and silver in London and in the United States, the COMEX exchange. And what is happening is that there is a shortage of silver that is becoming more and more apparent, and so this could start to fuel a move of silver prices going much higher than gold. And another reason for that is that the demand for silver, which unlike gold is much more of an industrial metal. For example, when you have a solar panel, you need some silver in there because in large part its ability as a top metal to conduct electricity, etc., becomes very effective. And on top of that, although it's not made public that often, in military demand, for example, when you want to build a missile, you use a lot of silver. So therefore, I think, and this is one of the reasons why in our portfolio we focused on not just a precious metal mining sector, but specifically stocks that are very strong as a percent of their mine, what output is silver. That's where we think could be particularly dramatic, and obviously the reason for that is, what if, which could happen, silver in the next 6 months were to go up 100%, while gold was only going up 20%. This kind of a differentiation between which of the two metals goes up the most could clearly satisfy people who, like us, are looking to make money mostly out of silver mining companies. And one of the things that this all tells you, which I've known for a long time, is that when you make a decision like this about where to put your money, you never know how long it's going to take to work out. And in this case, why we've been mentioning liking silver in particular, and silver mining companies in particular, for the better part of a year or more, and it really hasn't been that successful. But hope springs eternal, and we're going to be continuing to recommend that now may be a super time to take a bigger position in the silver mining companies like Endeavor Silver or Coeur Mining or Avino Silver. This may be the time.